everybody's suffering. Everyone's trying to figure it out. I was listening to an interview with Kylie Jenner, and she's telling herself affirmations in the mirror.
Right.
Like, is a billion followers is not enough of an affirmation. $1 billion is not enough of an affirmation, but it isn't.
Right.
It isn't, and that's the low self-esteem.
Neil, round 2, baby.
Round 2.
It's like, how many years ago was that? Almost.
It's one of the first episodes, early episode, right?
Yeah. Brandon, you, was one of the first ones in the yurt.
Yeah, I think you can tell from someone's podcast, it always starts with their friends. You know who their friend circle is by their first guests.
And that's really the advice. It was just start talking to people, start talking to your friends. Right. And it's also fun when you actually sit down. Obviously we know each other and we've discussed a lot of things, but also this is a different intention. Like you can have different conversations focused. I don't need to talk, right? I need to focus on you, and
we usually have very private conversations.
Yeah. But you're always so fascinating, right? Your latest podcast, which is wild. Tell that little story because it's so interesting how this Russian spy ended up in your life, and then you did the podcast about it. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think the main takeaway is my whole life is operated by curiosity.
Yeah.
And my next projects always come to me. It's not, they don't come to me like someone emailed me. The universe somehow sends you these things, or these things pique your interest.
Right.
And you notice yourself leaning forward and saying, what is this?
Right.
And when that happens, I usually, and you're the same, you're very similar. When that happens, I usually kind of go after and want to find out more.
Right.
So in this case, I had done, again, my curiosity does get me in trouble, as you know. So I had done a book with someone who was claimed to be a mafia figure, may have been, may not have been. And he passed away of lung cancer. And his son reached out and said, hey, I have someone I think you're going to want to meet. I'm like, who's this? And he says, well, was trained by the KGB, which it's actually the FSB. The KGB doesn't exist anymore, but for fact checkers out there, she was trained by the KGB as a spy to seduce men and for their secrets, heads of state and gang leaders and all kinds of people. Mm-hmm. And he said, I thought you'd be interested because you wrote that book, The Game, about seduction artists.
Right.
So I think you'll want to meet the female equivalent. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, the guys in the game weren't killing people, but sure.
And that wasn't trained by Russia.
Yes, yeah. And so had a dinner with her across the street here from where we're at in Malibu. And I brought to the dinner a friend of mine who was a top-ranking, not an agent, but an officer, manager, top-ranking guy at the CIA.
Brought him the first.
Brought him. Brought her there. Mafia guy was there. So it's basically a dinner with the mafia, the FBI, the mafia, the CIA, and the KGB.
And that is a Neil Strauss kind of situation, right?
It really is.
It's like that. That's how your curiosity, but your intelligence and your desire to find the truth always seems to, put you in these very interesting situations.
Yeah, and to make a bigger important point, we live in a world where everyone thinks they know the truth because they researched it online. And almost everything online is some form of manipulation, if not outright fakery. Mm-hmm. And so I think until you see and experience things with your own eyes, your ears, all your senses, the extra senses that allow you to intuitively pick up on things, you really don't know. You don't know.
Right. But that's also your superpower too, because it keeps you open, right? It keeps from your journalism background to being curious about a person to being also your desire to know creates a safety. And you're not coming in going, I know.
No, and I think that's a great point. And I might have a preconception, but I'm willing to discard it in the face of reality.
Right. So then you're at this meeting.
Right. And I noticed that everything she said, when she started speaking, that everybody stopped talking, everybody listened. And I always know as a journalist, writer, that when you have a story that's interesting or someone has a story that's interesting and no one wants to talk about themselves, especially in LA,
Wow.
you're onto something.
Right.
And so afterward, I asked the guy from the CIA, I said, what'd you think? Did she seem believable, credible to you? And he goes, she seems credible, but her story is incredible.
Wow.
And so I said, let me just sit down and hear her story. And so basically it's a story of her being supposedly trained by the Russian government, the secret seduction program, just like how to walk, how to dress, how to get, because if you're a agent, especially as a woman, you approach some guy and start hitting on him, he's going to feel suspicious, especially when you're targeting a ambassador or a scientist. And so how to make him approach you so he thinks it's his idea. So she would literally do things where if there's someone she's interested in, she'll spend a few weeks beforehand, or her and her team, planting like subconscious
Wow.
ideas. So maybe you'll just see a happy couple walking past, and with someone who kind of looks like her, she'll research her past so she can mold herself into that.
So it's almost like that mentalism as well, right?
Yeah.
That mentalist. They're suggesting something that you don't even know is, yeah.
You nailed it, because they studied NLP,
Right.
mirroring. So like if I want to
Right.
get rapport, I should have similar like posture and
Right.
to you and that. And so you can try this as a test with mirroring. NLP is kind of fun stuff to play with. If you start having your posture like someone else, and then you can eventually start to move and they'll move after you. It's almost like they become not quite a puppet, but you'll notice you just take a sip of your water, and then afterward,
Right.
that person will sip their water. But it's interesting because we're picking up so much from the world on these unconscious,
Right.
subconscious levels.
Well, I think of things like in talks or something, whenever someone starts talking about breath, for example, everyone then becomes conscious of their breath and their diaphragm, and their posture changes. And like, there's so many different ways that we can influence people, and we don't want to believe that we're being influenced too.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's probably that power that she would then have if the men in this case are thinking that they are leading it or it's their idea, when in fact she's been working the whole program for a week or so.
Yeah, she said men's biggest weakness is obviously their ego.
Right.
And just flattery and making him feel like he's special will get you everywhere.
Everything. So you went on this journey with her, and I know in talking with you, it's like, how do you really, other than a feeling, other than that meeting, other than continuing to talk with her, how do you really know? And you kind of set up the episodes in that way of like, it feels like it's real. It feels like it's. Where do you sit now with it? Maybe you don't want to give that away yet.
I'm happy. I won't sort of give it away, but I'm happy to talk about it, which is true. If somebody says, I was a Russian spy trained by the FSB, you can't fact check with. I mean, you can't even tell the news coming out of Russia is real. So how do you check that person's sort of credentials?
Yeah.
And then and I thought about it, and I thought, for fun, I'm going to call Chris Voss, the FBI negotiator, great guy. And I just called him for fun. I just said, hey, I'm curious, has anyone ever asked you what your credentials are? Has anyone asked you to prove that you say you're in the FBI? Has anyone ever asked you to prove it?
Right.
And he said, never.
Wow.
And so I thought, maybe there's a part where people might say this because she's a woman, because her Instagram is very fashion-y, fashion forward.
Right.
She's on the red carpet at Cannes right now, and that doesn't seem like something a secret agent should do. So I thought, why don't I suspend judgment? Just let her tell her story. If it's true, it's an amazing story. If it's not true, it's still an amazing story. Let's share it and see what we can learn.
Right.
Well, and then we'll unpack it all after she shares it. And I brought in tons of experts who, along the way, you learn a lot about how brainwashing works, especially when the state is doing it.
Yeah.
You learn how just propaganda works. You learn what it's like to be, which is a horrible experience, to be a woman that's in the military, in a place where there's literally no recourse if something happens, no one to escalate to, no one to talk to,
Right.
like zero. It's already tough enough here.
Wow. So then, where do you kind of sit with her now after this whole process and all this time?
Yeah, I mean we're halfway done with the episode, so now I'm
Yeah.
just finishing up the rest of it. It's
Yeah.
the most, again, it's best just listen to it. It takes about a month to do each episode because
Yeah.
you really try to
Oh,
produce
right.
it like a documentary.
Yeah.
So now we're just working on the next half of it. But I feel like I learned a lot. I learned a lot about how espionage works. I definitely lowered my trust level for other people. Like there's the idea that and I think a lot of countries do this. There's people who come over from all different countries and they're just called eyes and ears. They're not a spy, but what they're doing is they're just listening and they report to a handler if they hear anything interesting. And so it made me just think, oh, I don't know what people's agenda may be.
Yeah, and in kind of pivoting back to what leads your life, and I think it's such an important point. You lead with curiosity. You come in with creativity. You come in with knowledge and
Right.
and systems. You're a good system person. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, or have our own
Exactly.
fallibilities, right? But and then you've had, I'm really curious too about you've created systems that have helped a lot of people too, and people don't really know that a lot of about you. You've written how many freaking bestsellers, New York Times bestsellers, but you've really studied systems of not only how do you pick up women, but also how do you organize your life and be functional. When did that start taking root in your life?
Yeah, I think it's true. I think I've said it all kinds of. I just want to understand how things work.
Right.
Whether it's relationships, why do we choose the people we choose? Why do people cheat? Why do we act against our own best interests sometimes in relationships? Why don't they work? Why do we pick people who might be bad for us? So I'm interested in all the systems. So as you were mentioning, courtship, relationships. I was fascinated with the Aaliyah Rosa, the spy person. I asked her, how long does it take for you to make a guy fall in love with you? And she goes, 3 dates. And she thought about it for a moment. She goes, give me an hour. I need an hour. So when she said that, she hooked me. And I'm like, I need to interview you for this podcast and find out what your method and system is. So I love, I think it's about an interest in the human mind, both my own, the minds of other people. And I think this comes from probably growing up in a household that maybe wasn't safe.
Right.
So you have to really understand things that are out of your level and out of your league to keep yourself safe in some way.
Right.
So I think a lot of the curiosity comes from that.
Navigating that in a very
that.
survival kind of way, because safety is, if you don't have safety, you can't do anything.
Yeah,
it's paralyzing.
Yeah, and then your trauma, it can be a feature or it can be what's the opposite of a feature?
Well, a hindrance.
A hindrance, right? And so the question with my own, say, growth and healing is, how can I keep the features and lessen the hindrances?
Right.
So we were talking about systems. Go ahead.
Yeah. So, but also through that journey, which you've written about several times in The Truth and stuff, is like, which is such a great book. I just love that book. How he viscerally took us all through that fantasy world and going, wow, check that box. If part of me wanted to understand that at all, but your willingness to put yourself into a situation, but moreover, look at yourself so hard that you have healing to go through, right? So that's really where you have checked your ego. So, because in all intents and purposes, you could have a huge ego with all your success, but you have kept this innocence and this curiosity so that you keep intaking, you keep exploring, and I think the value there is how you continuously are curious. It's not only just out there, but it's about how you're working, right, how your inner work happens, and then that creates a hell of a book,
Yeah.
right?
And even if the books never came out, they'd already be successes,
Right,
because I was trying to learn something for myself.
right.
So really the whole approach is learning something for yourself, and if it's useful, sharing it.
Right. Just out of curiosity, to put you on the spot,
Please.
do you have I know you've thought about your next book personally. Is anything like at the forefront right
Yeah.
now?
In fact, it's something you said 20 seconds ago.
Oh,
Because you were saying, like, I like how you've done all these things and you could have a big ego and you don't. So this is the book is called The Power of Low Self-Esteem. and literally, I think we live in this world now that's full of all these people who are like wearing these masks of.
yeah.
It's not just the Instagram through the perfect life. I feel like that's an older narrative already by now, but it's the TikToker breaking news. I just got it's some kid in his dorm room with the breaking news.
Right.
And everybody is sort of, even people are kind of being vulnerable in this fake vulnerable way. So I feel like we live in this world where even the whole healing message, because I think trauma is kind of trendy now, which I hate to see because it's been meaningful for my life. But I also think we're live in a world where we're constantly being told how we're wrong, how we're not enough, how can we be better, compare to this, compare to that, and then given unrealistic standards to live up to. And even in history, we learn the lives of the great people who did this and did that. But if you actually look at their lives, like low self-esteem was the driving force. Right. Feeling you're not enough in a reasonable amount of not enough, not too much not enough, right? Not so much shame that you feel like my existence, my existence is a hindrance to others and I shouldn't be here.
It
There's
goes,
an extreme of that.
Yeah.
But you know who had that extreme? Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, his friends wouldn't let him walk around with a penknife in case he killed himself.
Wow.
One of the greatest, say, figures in our history. Wow. And he wrote, and I'm going to misquote it, but I'm just so dark, my darkness could just fill the whole world. I'm so depressed. And so he
lived with that.
He lived with that.
Wow.
And so we just think, how can I be great like this person or that person? Martin Luther King told his congregation, sometimes dreams don't come true. Mother Teresa, again, more of a controversial figure, but struggled with her faith every day. But that you already have it. Everyone already has it there. Right. And you don't have to fix something to then go do something. And I think we're in this. And again, I've done a lot of work on myself and I believe in becoming better. But I don't believe in that becoming an obstacle to greatness.
I love that. Dude, there's so much beauty in that because the instant feeling I get is allows people to accept themselves now. And then at the same time, I know for me in my life, the challenges are propellers.
Yeah.
So of course I want those.
Right.
Of course you don't want to ever suffer in the acutely, right? When abuse happens or sadness happens, of course no one wants that. But this is kind of the makeup. If you think of a system, we're in a system that you can walk outside and stub your toe and get hit by a car and have someone abuse you. It's gnarly. And how to transmute that to then, I've been playing this for a long time in the sense that what if nothing was ever wrong? What if it was always there for our benefit? But if we get fixated on it's wrong, that I was wronged, or whatever it is, then we're potentially missing this opportunity, right?
Yeah, that's it. And it's not the thing, it's our relationship with the thing, right? So we can be in the story of this is wrong and spiral out of control. It can be in the story of this happened in some way for my benefit that I can't see right now. Let me work to see that. And here's the thing. My thought is, let's just say we don't know. We'll go back to that original thing we're saying that we don't know. But if we don't know, then let's just pick the interpretation that best serves us.
Right.
Does the interpretation is the world is conspiring against me and all this stuff is hurting me and keeping me from fulfilling my full potential? Or does it serve you more to say, this is all working for me?
Right.
Whatever it is, and helping me get to my fullest potential.
So
it seems like at least we tell ourselves so many lies. Like people probably lie to themselves. We should count them hundreds of times a day.
Right.
So at least tell yourself the lies that best serve you and others.
Right. Because you're making up the interpretation.
You're making it up. I had a therapist once who said, all your thoughts are lies. Right. And it's a really profound, radical statement, but I also couldn't disagree with it.
Right. Because it's that whole part of trying to understand what is going on. And so it's easy to rationalize. I remember in my psychology class, this lady stood up and she always would complain. And she would just like, da 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 da. And that's exactly what the PhD said.
Yeah.
He said, well, if you're going to make up a story, make up one that serves you.
Right.
Because this whole thing that you do every time we have a process is not serving you.
Yeah, there's a key thing to know, like how a trauma's work in your life, is if your strategy that you're using brings the opposite into your life.
Yeah.
Right? So for example, if you're afraid of abandonment, I'm afraid my partner will leave me, and then you're checking their phone all the time, you're asking them where they were when they're 15 minutes late, or they don't return a text or a call, and they feel like they're coming home to some sort of police state or something.
Right.
Well, they're going to want to be around you less. So your strategy for keeping someone, which is constantly monitoring them, is actually driving them away.
Right.
So anything in your life you can look at and say, is my strategy I'm using bringing what I want closer to me or further away?
Right. When people are, maybe they've been in a story and they've had trauma or something just happened, what's a strategy for them what's a step that one can take to disrupt a similar pattern?
Yeah, I can tell you, I love this. It's true, because literally some people would rather be right than be happy. They like to be right about being miserable, right? They'd like to be right about everybody being out to get them. And by the way, and you're a good friend if you tell someone the truth versus the story they want to hear.
Yeah.
And some people make it very hard to tell them the truth. They want to just enroll everybody in their lie. So yeah, what are some strategies? So thinking out loud, I think there's a couple steps. So the strategy to sort of, if there's a strategy in your life that's not working for you, or if things are getting you sort of agitated, right? So here's the strategy that I literally use all the time. So let's just talk about the scenario. The scenario is a situation where I may be going, or someone's going into a place of fear, of reactivity, of high stress. And then I think when it happens, people might feel like they're possessed, like another person comes out. And that person is usually like your younger self takes over. Your younger self takes over that experience that at some point in your life. Obviously, when you're dependent, anything is a survival threat. So you go into the survival mode. Let's call it false survival mode. So first step is one is you recognize the feelings in your body when it started to happen, right? So you recognize, maybe if I go into false survival mode, maybe my stomach gets tight. Maybe my heart feels constricted. Maybe I feel like this weird racing sensation in my wrist. So you recognize those signals, and you have to intervene really quickly.
Right.
Because if you don't, it's too late. Boom, it takes over, and then you got to wait till you recover.
Right. And it's like that whole thing of letting the bees out of the hive. Once they're out,
that's it.
Yeah, now you have a lot of other repercussions to deal with.
Yeah. I think of it like a roller coaster. A roller coaster, when it's going up, it's going up. You feel it's ramping up. Oh my God, I'm getting stressed out. I'm doing this. And then you maybe try to solve it. You're talking more. You're being misunderstood.
Yeah.
And then once you go over the cliff,
Yeah.
boom, you're down, and you hear something's taken over till you hit the bottom.
Yeah.
And then what do you feel at the bottom? Shame.
Yeah.
So that you can recognize afterward. When you feel shame afterward, then you know I got to recognize. So first step is recognize the feelings before your conscious mind is even aware of what's happening. Right. And then as soon as you feel them, separate from the situation and regulate. And there's like 3 ways you can do that. One way, and by the way, one way this happens a lot is when we're with our partner in a relationship. And often we chose them because there's some part that resembles a struggle we had with a parent. And then we start reenacting that with them. So if we're in a discussion and partner accuses you of something you didn't do, or you feel like they're nagging you about something, or you feel that they're being, whatever it may be, and you feel yourself starting to react. By the way, as soon as you react, you're always wrong. That's why I learned to stop it. Like once you react, even if you're right, you're wrong.
Right.
Right?
It's true.
Someone accuses you of something you didn't do at all, like just outlandish.
Right.
And you you yell and slam the door, now you're the asshole.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you want to do this for the shallowest reason, just to win, just stay connected and cool. And so the ways to do it are...
And that's power. That's self-control power, right?
Yeah.
That's again, not letting all of that emotion get a hold of you.
Yeah, and it's also like it's also you feel good afterward. Instead of shame, you're like, and then half the time, the person will come apologize later. Once once their roller coaster hits the bottom, they'll come back and say, you know what, I'm sorry that I said that. I trust you, or maybe they won't, and you can choose to leave them if they don't. But here they say I didn't finish the idea. So as soon as you feel that, you need to instantly remove yourself from the situation. So you can just say, hey, 1 second, I'll be right back.
Right.
Step outside, get some fresh air, and then tell yourself whatever little thing you have to tell yourself. I know you've done the reparenting work, so it could be, hey, that's not my mom or my dad. She just loves me, or he just loves me, and he's scared. And guess what? You don't have to go back and deal with it. You don't have to control their reaction. Mm-hmm. It's just about yours. Most people spin out trying to control someone else, trying to control what they're thinking, trying to control what they're feeling, trying to control the energy they have. But you can just say, hey, what would support you most now? Do you need to? I have this little formula of mouth, feet, hands. I'll get to the fourth one. I'm ruining the formula because I haven't. Ears, mouth, feet, hands, ears, which is, what do you read around? Do you need advice? Do you need just to listen? That's ears. Do you need a hug? Some people just want a hug. They don't want you to just shut up and give them a hug. Other people just want you to leave them alone until they get back. Right. And that's feet. You leave the room. Right. But I don't try to solve, when someone's in their reactive state, I don't try to solve a problem with them, because that's their, I'm arguing with the child. Mm-hmm. The person may not be, the child's taken over. I wait till they're back to their adult self. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you can't leave the room, right? So I'll leave the room. If I'm on a phone call, I'll be right back. Maybe I'll say I have to go to the bathroom. Or you can just literally, if it's a situation where you just can't leave, I can just, I'm sitting here, I can just slide over here. And in my head, just think, this is a new moment. I'm gonna have a new moment now. Right. Right? So it's just, you have to break your state and interrupt the pattern. Right. If that makes sense. That was a long answer, but hopefully.
No, but it also takes work, in a sense.
And this is why it's so cool, because your brain has been wired to have this response since childhood. Right. And then you've reinforced it over and over again as an adult. But the amazing thing is, and I promise this, if you just get in the habit of trying to do this, as you do it more, your brain actually rewires, because it learns, like everyone listening, you were smart as a child. You figured out how to survive your situation. Yeah. And those situations were exactly the right thing to do at that age. Yeah. But now you're this age, and so you need to learn new strategies. And once your brain sees, oh, this is working, you're happier, your partner is happier, your life is more harmonious, you feel better about yourself, the connections start getting made.
One could argue it's just disrupting this pattern. Boom. Right?
Pattern interrupt.
So it's like any strategy that you can use. Even people listening right now, inevitably you're going to have an argument with a partner. Yeah. You can start right now with even the intention. Next time we have a disharmony, my intention is to approach it differently.
So my intention is to, as soon as I feel it starting, my intention is to step away just for a moment. Right. Say, you know what, I want to address this. Just give me 1 second. So your intention is to step away, return to center, and stay centered.
Because I'm thinking of, like, many relationships, resentment can build up. Someone does the same thing all the time and it pisses you off. Like, probably every relationship, there's, whether big or small. And so the next time someone is going to do their thing that has nothing to do with you, but it irks you, that's a perfect opportunity to just, like, practice, these new disrupting habits. And
two caveats, by the way, on this. One is, we're not saying just accept it. I'm actually saying that if someone's talking in a way that's disrespectful, it's actually okay to say from a centered place, hey, I don't love being talked to like that, so I'm gonna give you some time to, think about it. I'm gonna step away. That's okay to do that. Yeah. But you're still staying calm and doing it, and they can react, they can yell at you, whatever, but you're not going to engage. Like, you're not going to engage. And the second thing is, obviously, I'm sure this applies to some people out there, if it's like emotionally or physically abusive behavior, like, get support. There are many helplines out there, many people out there.
Get the hell away.
Get the hell away. And most people, if all your friends and your family all agree that this person's horrible for you, most of the time they're right. And sometimes these people, they're real toxic narcissists, borderline person. Not every narcissist is toxic to date. Not every person with borderline personality disorder is toxic to date. It's not every, but there are people out there who really dating them who'd like to cut you off from things, have you become completely dependent on it, you leave your job, sell your car. They want you to complete dependence, and it's basically like a one-person cult that you're in, and your family and friends. Usually, if you start cutting off family and friends to make someone else happy, huge sign to just get out. It's so hard. It's so hard. Relationships are so easy to get into and hard to get out of. But if that's you, and really just one person hears this, just get out, get support, cut off all contact, don't look back, and meet someone.
In the in the now years that you've spent analyzing, learning about relationships and things like that, and now cut to all this social media, all of these apps, all these things, what do you see as deteriorating in kind of this fabric of connecting and relationship in general? It doesn't have to be romantic, or not. I mean, there's pluses and minuses to all of it, I would imagine. But what are you seeing? Because you're also a forethinker. You see patterns, and you're kind of there in a lot of ways before other people. So now it's me asking you a question of your keen observation in the fabric of what's going on. What do you think is not working?
Yeah.
In relationship right now,
in a relationship with social media and technology, right?
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying? Or just in the culture right now?
Yeah, in the culture.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things. One is it's not the thing, whether it's the culture or social media, it's our relationship with it.
Yeah.
Like there's a beautiful TikTok story recently where, I don't know how recent it is, but a woman, had a terminal cancer. She gave the kind of rights to her last song to, I believe, her 9-year-old or her child. And then this story got out on TikTok, and they all blew up the song, which is a beautiful kind of pop song. And then it sort of became a hit.
Wow.
So you listen to the song, which is already a great song, and then you just want to cry, and you think, oh, people on social media did something beautiful for this person's legacy and this person's child. So the beautiful stuff is happening out there, and the horrible stuff is happening out there. And if I want to step back, I'm reading right now this, and I've showed it to you, Darin, that penguin set of, it's a penguin called Little Black Classics. It's 80, and I think the series is up to 120 of the best, greatest writings of all time by the greatest authors, thinkers, literature, philosophy, poetry of the last 2,000 plus years.
Wow.
And so I'm reading Socrates, and Socrates is saying, if you want to make change in this world, don't be famous because the mob is going to tear you down. I'm like, oh, that's like today.
Right.
And then I'm reading, and literally every person I read from every era, I read Albert Camus, and Albert Camus is writing this in 1954, and he's saying, you can't just be an artist anymore. You have to have an opinion on everything that happens in the culture. And if you don't share your opinion, that's already an opinion, and everyone's mad at you.
Right.
Like, oh shit, that's like today. So I do think that is a thread of human nature that runs through everything. And literally, before social media, there were the village gossips, who are going to try to keep anyone who steps out of line of the cultural norm down and assassinate their character and run them out. Right. So we've always done this as a culture.
Yeah.
There's a part, and I don't know what we can do about it, but it's tough right now.
Yeah, and it's also, maybe it's more rapid. Maybe it's more just different intensity in a certain sense. I remember, I'm not going to name the name of one of the most, recognized people in the world. We're working on the contract for the show, and it's eventually not going to work. And I talked to one of my buddies who fixes a lot of things for some of these people. And he goes, hey, this person may have hundreds of thousands of followers, hundreds of millions of followers, hundreds and hundreds. He goes, keep in mind, there's at least 10 million people that are hell-bent on pulling her down. 10 million. So it's like it didn't happen as a result. To your point, I'm just making a point here. it didn't happen because of social media. It's kind of within the fabric. If you think of like the Nordic countries, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, in those cultures, don't get too famous. Be humble, but yet be proud. What? Be like they don't even know how to. They want to keep you a little controlled in that sense. So you have cultures that do it a little more intense, and I don't know what the answer is.
I mean, it's interesting. So I interviewed. By the way, I think one fallacy people are under is that people who comment represent everybody's thoughts.
Right.
They just represent the thoughts of the type of people who comment. Like you and I, the three of us in this room, have probably never left a negative comment on anything. Have you? Ever? Yeah, I never have. Have you?
Right. No.
Right. So it's just
exactly.
People think it's taking a temperature of the culture. It's a temperature of people who actually spend their time commenting. It's a subset of people. But we think it's reality, and it's interesting. And I think that the scale is tough. I remember I interviewed Bruce Springsteen, and he was just talking about the positive side. He goes, to go from playing in your garage for a couple of people to playing every night for 60,000 people is not something the human psyche is meant to handle. So I've had to have a lot of therapy to deal with that. That's people screaming, "You're great, Bruce." Not right. People screaming, "You suck."
Right.
It's funny. I was thinking the other day and I looked it up. Sometimes I think I have an original thought, then you Google it to see who said it first, just in case. So turns out Dennis Miller did say this once, but Andy Warhol, everyone would be famous for 15 minutes. Now it's everyone will be hated for 15 minutes.
Wow.
Right? Yeah.
It's flippant for normal people. Most of us are normal when you look at a super famous person, right? And you think, oh my God, they have everything. But to that point, it's difficult to grok all of the. I mean, there's no way I would want a Justin Bieber's life. He can't do anything.
No, and
right?
I think it helps. I interviewed this one comic book artist named Chris Ware, who's like just one of the greatest comic book artists of all time. And he said this great point. He said, everybody should walk around with a picture of themselves when they're like 7 or 8 on their chest, so you can actually say, oh, that's who you are. Because in Justin Bieber's mind or in any celebrity's mind, they're still, just think of that whatever damaged 12-year-old was there. And people don't get that rich or famous without an equivalent amount of damage.
It's true. It's.
I mean, my job for Rolling Stone was to interview the most famous people in the world. And I wouldn't just sit down in a room with them. I'd spend weeks, sometimes months with them.
Right.
And deep at their core, everybody's suffering. Everyone's trying to figure it out. I was listening to an interview with Kylie Jenner, and she's telling herself affirmations in the mirror. Right. Like, a billion followers is not enough of an affirmation. $1 billion is not enough of an affirmation. But it isn't. Right. It isn't. And that's the low self-esteem point, is like everybody is walking around afraid, insecure, wanting to fit in, wanting to be liked. And so instead of being an asshole to them, you can actually be kind and support them, whatever it is. Even if the person seems like a arrogant jerk, they're probably overcompensating for something painful inside.
Oh, dude, it's such an important point, especially with that high-level celebrity. It's so easy to be, but literally, and coming from you, you've literally interviewed hundreds and hundreds, and you've could have made Almost Famous movie many times over with many different celebrities, right? And you're seeing the inner working. So coming from you, we're all literally dealing with the same thing.
Yeah, and this is what I learned, and you probably would relate to this, which is like fame and money don't fix your problems, they amplify them.
Right.
Whatever it is. That's why it's good to fix yourself. It is still good to work on yourself and work on the parts of yourself while accepting yourself. But yeah, whatever is going on, fame is going to amplify the good and the bad.
So anyone listening who wants to be famous, take care of your shit, get famous later. Get through the child time, because, man.
There's a contradictory message. So it's like, go do it, but keep working yourself and looking at yourself in the mirror while you're doing it. And and also all kinds of things, getting older and the way the brain the deterioration of the prefrontal cortex, so much stuff. Like maybe it's just having empathy for recognizing that everybody's challenged.
Yeah.
And you're not alone in that.
Yeah. For the last few minutes here.
Yeah. I know it's funny. We came in and I said, Darin, I'm really excited to talk about my time management systems. I have all these awesome systems for dealing with devices, but I love this conversation. I love that it's really natural to what we're excited by.
Right. Well, let's give them 5 minutes of because I think it's important. So awareness without action, without a supporting system, I see it all the time. Right? We see it all the time. It doesn't lead to actualization. And I think and there's so much. I mean, we could do a whole new podcast starting right now.
Yeah.
But I think everyone has a feather touch of an awareness that they want to live their life. They want to pursue, they want to creative, and they want to. So anyone listening, we're not even going to unpack that. What's a strategy to leave people with to start developing and taking action on steps to create their life, to express their creativity, to build a new business, to move towards something that they really want?
Yeah, and I think let's tie it all together. Let's see if we can do this, right? So the first part was about accepting yourself, that all these things you're struggling with are part of you. Then the other part is about still working to improve and fix yourself because we want to do that. Why do we work out, right? It's like I can accept myself when I look in the mirror and still it feels good. I feel good working out.
Right.
I feel good working on my mental health, right? I feel good doing these things whilst accepting ourselves. They're not contradictory. And now the next piece of it now is then for what, right? What is your purpose? What are the things you're doing in the life? And so maybe to tie it all together, we want to live a proactive life, not a reactive life.
Right.
A reactive life, and I've seen people lose themselves in the field of they start clicking on something in social media, then the algorithm feeds more of that same thing back to them, and they start feeling there's a crisis at hand. It activates survival mode, and now all of a sudden they're an anti-something crusader,
right.
and they're just have these, and whatever their life purpose was before kind of got lost in reaction again. Yeah. So I think it's really important to not bathe yourself in all the incoming texts, posts, news, even just people's agenda for you, and it's hard because we want to stay connected, we want to keep up, we don't want to miss any texts. So a couple strategies I've found then is this. The strategy I found is this: for most people, willpower is not enough to keep yourself focused on the tasks at hand. Mm-hmm. And by the way, it's okay if you don't know what your tasks are. Then the task is to try different tasks and see what you like.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you don't know what your purpose is or what your passion is. Just do shit you enjoy.
Right.
But notice what gives you shame afterward. For example, when you're trying to just clear that backlog of text and messages, you don't feel like you spent your time well after that. If you're playing some app game, you probably don't feel good after that. Mm-hmm. If you're watching TikTok for half an hour, you don't feel good after that. But you do feel good after you produce or you make something, you're out in nature. Mm-hmm. So I would say if there's a tactical thing, one would be design what a perfect week would look like for you. And the perfect week would include the things the have to do's, and the want to do's. And what would that perfect week look like for you and I? Maybe it's, we wake up, we have our morning routine, we do a little bit of work, we go work out, we go maybe deal with some more work, we do some writing, some creative stuff, you do a podcast, then we great to surf too, besides the workout in a day, and then deal with all the practical stuff at the end of the day, the phone calls, the emails, the texts, and then, whatever, maybe a nice dinner or something small and social, whatever your perfect day might be. Time with your kids, whatever it is. So first actually design that so you can decide what you're going to do each day. The night before, plan your perfect day. Next, step 2 is know that you're not going to do it without help. 2 things that help. So your willpower is not strong enough, so you have to know what your temptations are. So temptation, for example, the phone is a temptation. If it's next to my bed, I'm probably going to check it in the morning. Do you guys wake up with your phone next to you?
I,
Do you check it in the morning or no? Do you check it in the morning?
I don't. Not until I get through my morning routine.
Right. Yeah, and I'll check it also. I'll check it in the morning. If it's next to me, I'll check it in the morning, but I won't check it if it's in the K safe, the kitchen safe.
Right.
It was the
famous kitchen safe.
Kitchen safe. I just lock my phone up before I go to bed, put a timer on so it doesn't free till I want to look at it, and then I don't have to look at it. Of course, and that's obviously I have, say, an Apple Watch, so if I need to check a message or something's important with my child, I'm still going to see it, but it's hard to get compulsive about a watch. So it goes back to the theme has been knowing yourself and then knowing how to sort of interrupt your patterns. So the pattern is I always check my phone in the morning, then I promise I'm not going to check my phone the next morning, then you check it, you feel bad. If you lock it in a kitchen safe, or you put it in a drawer, or you give it to someone else, you make it difficult to get to, or you put it downstairs, upstairs, in the attic, in the basement, buried in a hole outside, it's harder to check. I have a program called Freedom. I told you know about this. I put it on my computer. It keeps me offline. So I know I can start my day with like clear thoughts.
Right.
And sometimes then it goes back to, do you have the discipline to put your phone in the safe at night? If you don't, you can ask someone else to do it who lives with you. You can make a reward or incentive systems that allow you to do it. So the main thing is know what makes you happy and connects you. Know what disconnects you and makes you unhappy. Notice when you're doing the disconnecting things. Don't promise yourself not to do them. Create a system so that it's actually impossible for you to do them.
Right.
And a simple thing really is if you get rid of your phone and start using the Apple Watch, I promise I'm not, but it's really hard. You're not going to be texting while driving. You're not going to be getting compulsive about doing something on your Apple Watch because the screen is so small. Right. So I've been really practicing. I didn't do it today of how much can my phone be at home. So freedom, kitchen safe, device management, attention management, and just surrounding yourself. I think a happy life is as simple as surrounding yourself with the creative forces in your life, the connecting forces, the energy-giving forces.
Yeah.
So it's probably a good idea at the end of the year, every year, to take a moment and take a life assessment. What are the people, the places, the things that are helping me feel strong and radiant, and what's weighing me down. Yeah. And it's all a choice. And if you take responsibility, you can make new choices.
Yeah, and I think that full circle, like being willing to look at what the strengths and the challenges are, and then devising a system, like you said, beyond willpower to support you to have actually what you want.
Yeah, because you have awesome willpower. Like you don't need a kitchen safe. You just know your phone's there and you're good not checking it till this certain time. Yeah. You're you work out, whatever it is, five days a week?
Six.
And if you don't, like you're not pleasant to be around. You're not pleasant to be. You're just, if you go to bed at what time every night? Like 9?
8:30, 9.
8:30, and if it gets past that, you're just. What do you think happened? What do you think? Where does that inner discipline come from?
I got so used to the other side of it, feeling so good about, like for me, when I go to sleep at night, I'm so excited about the morning productivity and the peace and the joy. So that's the flip. I think when you implement these things, they fill you up so much, just like eating. If I eat a delicious salad, it feels so good because it's life and living. But if I eat some ultra-processed food, I know the feeling of the result. So the result helps to kind of lock me in. And then once I've disciplined that, it's just no matter what.
Yeah, I just realized something because I was thinking, I was like, why is it so hard to just do the things that feel good and avoid the things that feel bad? And the reason is there's this chasm between them. It's the chasm of discomfort. Right? Can you cross the chasm of, can you also avoid the things, can you just cross the chasm of discomfort to get the things that feel good? And like you said, I think that's the thing what we've been talking about. If you break some of these habits, go through the chasm of discomfort, and you keep doing the things that feel good enough, whatever they are to you, they may be different than what is good for Darin or me, that will start to become habit. And the stuff we did before, a year before will seem like ludicrous to you. You'll be like, oh my
Ludicrous.
God, I can't even believe that was me.
Right.
And that's growth.
And the integration is such a self-filling, powerful thing. Because there is that chasm, right? To break or change or develop a new habit, it's a pain in the ass for a second because it's disruptive to what you were doing before. But once you've done it and commit to it and integrate it, now you don't think about it again.
Yeah.
Amazing, man.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, fun talking. That was a great conversation. We got to do this more.
Yes, for
Yeah.
sure.